All right, everybody, I appreciate you coming out for the first official Sanctum meeting. Here's how stuff's going to do. We're going to start out with the overview of the game. I'm going to walk through the game for anybody that doesn't know how the game works. Then we're going to go over what the future of the game is, what we want to actually see. Then we're going to go over the specific needs of the developers, the artists, the designers, and the writers. And then we're going to open up to any questions you might have. I may stop for questions in between here because I know there'll probably be questions for like developer stuff and all that stuff. But I want to start off with just the basics of how the game works and what the basic game loop is right now so that you guys can kind of get a feel for it. Anybody that has not seen it yet. So I'm going to share my screen and I'll kind of show it off. So can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
Do you see Google or do you see Sanctum?
I see Discord.
Okay,
Yes,
perfect.
I see Discord.
All right, so when someone joins the game, they end up in this channel called The Gate. And if you ignore all of this bullshit here, that's not supposed to be there.
Yeah, no, it's supposed to be there. Like, it's intentional.
It's not supposed to be.
I totally did not do that.
So they'll see a message like this, where they're basically given 3 choices. Now, these are old from the old factions that we had. Basically, there are 3 factions in the game, and each faction has different advantages and disadvantages for all the different stuff that they do. They cannot. This is the only channel that they can see, and they don't have access to anything else until they use one of these commands to join one of these factions. Matter of fact, the invite link that we'll be sending out are temporary invite links. So if they log off and they don't have a role, they're kicked out of the channel completely. So the only way they can do anything is if they use one of these. Originally, it was the Order, the Anarchy, and the Religion, but now it's Obsidian Technologies, Genesis Command, and the Hand. Once they join one of these, they have access to the specific rooms for that specific faction. So the Hand has a Cathedral, which is a general chat area, and then a bot spam area where they can type commands. And then they also get access to Crystal Shores, which is basically a PvE area with enemies and stuff like that. Right now, this is one of the things that we need to actually do. So we need earlier stage enemies. So right now we only have one enemy, which is the Ravager, but he's an endgame enemy, and he shows up in the Deadlands. So Crystal Shores is, I believe it's level 10, under level 10, and then after that you get Sea of Fog, which is level 11 to level 25, I believe, and then the Deadlands is 26 plus. And each one of these has a specific type of enemy that you have to fight, and when you, basically how it works is the enemies will spawn something like this. They'll have a level, they'll have HP, they'll have a certain amount of hearts. This is a super weak one because it only has 1 heart. And then you can type !attack to attack it, or you can... Is this in, Jonathan, where you...
So what I'm playing right now, attack is no longer command in the bot.
Okay.
As far as I know.
So you just click
that's the only way for now. And also, I need to change what you said for the leveling. It's 15 and 30. 15 plus and 30 plus.
That's fine. That's an in-game level. That's fine. So then you would actually click an emote, and then it will register your attack with the server, and then it all based on your stats. So real quick, I'm going to show you. Are the stats working at the moment?
Yes, it should.
Beautiful. It doesn't. maybe.
Do it in testing grounds, I think.
Okay. So if you type stats in your room, okay, perfect. So each person has a level. They have a bio canister. They have a cipher crate number. Then they have a series of stats. So they have strength, speed, stamina, HP, crystals, and then a series of crafting materials. Now, how this works is when you attack enemies, you gain XP. XP will help you level up. When you level up, you gain 1 canister. Canisters can be redeemed from Grays to update your stats. So, what is it? Upgrade? Will that work in testing grounds?
It should work.
Okay. So I can upgrade my strength, my speed, my stamina, my HP, whatever. So in this case, I'm going to upgrade my strength. So if I type upgrade str, So now if I type stats again, I have 1 less canister. So I have 2, but I also have an extra strength point. And strength is the amount of damage that you do to enemies, give or take a random amount. So for this example, he has 42 health. I would actually do 12 damage to his health by doing that. So you can kind of level up. You can see how this kind of works over time. And you also earn crystals for destroying enemies as well. Once you hit level 30, you stop gaining canisters. So you can only earn 30 canisters, and then you start gaining cipher crates. Cipher crates are like loot boxes. They are not implemented yet. Basically, it would drop gear when you cash them in to an extra vendor that we don't have. And then crystals are basically the currency, and you earn those when you fight enemies as well. The only way that you can earn these materials currently is in the outskirts, and every once in a while, Ray shows up to help scavenge, and you do... Is Ray up? I don't think she's up. But you type exclamation.
You can do exclamation point summon to summon her.
Just summon?
Yes, it should be. Well, it doesn't work? No.
No. Well, this is going to be a theme.
Awesome.
It's going to be a theme for this game.
Wait,
no, so
yeah.
basically, let me see if I can find an example of when somebody scavenged. It's been so long.
Yeah.
Probably not. But basically...
It's probably all flooded from the last
It is flooded. So basically when you type scavenge, it costs crystals to scavenge, but you can find random materials. There's different rarities for materials. The materials don't do anything at this point, but eventually they're going to be used to upgrade weapons or craft weapons or whatever, which we don't have in the game yet. And so the basic loop of the game is to attack enemies and gain crystals, gain XP, to level up your stats, and then once you finish leveling up your stats, the end game grind is the gear, and the gear would be randomized weapons and armor that you can wear to help improve your stats, which is not implemented yet. And then the last activity that we have after this was the dungeon.
Okay, yeah, that was I can submit that for you.
Can you run through a demonstration of that real quick?
Okay, is it working? No, it is not because it's offline. Okay. Great. By the way,
No.
Ray didn't appear because I delay.
I think he misspelled summon.
Yeah.
It says summon R. Is that supposed to be?
Yeah, I did summon R because it was going to conflict with Messiah, I believe, or whatever it means.
All right, so it's just different. All right, well, what happens here is basically this is a randomly generated, well, as of now it's not, but it will be a randomly generated dungeon where basically you're in a room, and this is where some of the artist stuff comes in too, because these are just placeholder. But basically, if you think of like navigating a 3D space, just text-based arena. So you have a series of direction arrows, and you can move north, for example, to go into the dungeon. Then different areas have different availabilities, like this one has north, south, or west that you can move. And different things are different areas. Sometimes you'll encounter an enemy, sometimes you'll find a chest. And so on and so forth. This is the main end game system that we're working on right now. Well, mainly Jonathan, so I got to give him credit.
Hey, Tim.
Yeah.
I put in a picture of what I've worked on so far for the ASCII random map generator. It's in the developer chat.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, that's 2 different types. On the bottom, that's presets that I had working before, and then on the top, that's just random walls. I'm just finicking with it right now, just, messing around with it, just seeing what works better.
So a system like this, so this is one of the coolest things, I think, in any text-based Discord RPG ever, which there's like 4 of them on the planet. But it's one of the coolest systems ever. So once we get all that working, the random generation with the actual text adventure stuff where you can actually earn stats and level up, and like in these chests, we can have the loot crates, we can have the canisters, we can have the crafting materials, we can have weapons, we can have armor. So there's so much cool stuff that you can find in like a raid like this. Once we get this whole system, I think it'll be really, really fun. And this will be the pinnacle of the end game kind of thing. And then also we'll be designing, once we get this whole thing working, this one's Hell's Gate, but there'll be different ones that you can design that like will have different difficulties, or if maybe one will have 50% chance of spawning Ravagers or whatever. whereas 1 is 10. We'll figure all that out. But so that's the basics of the game. Did anyone have any questions on that? On how the game works?
Yeah. How many people can be in one dungeon at a time?
So it's unlimited right now.
It's unlimited, but we are limiting it to a 6-party thing, right? At a time.
I don't know. It's like I'm whatever. I'm planning to like add a voting system where like it doesn't really matter unless like it's basically a hive mind. But yeah, I don't know. I
think we should limit it personally, but that's just my design opinion. I'm open to however it works.
That's going to get complicated with the random map generation. If I show like player movement at the same time, yeah, that's going to be interesting.
Well, I mean, with the way that works, we could generate a map every time a party joins. So then they have their map and it can store it. And then we could that's why I was thinking of having multiple dungeons, because we have Hell's Gate, we can have this one, we have that one, we have that one. And then if this one's occupied, you can take another one and you can join a different one. And they would be different difficulties and different challenges and stuff.
By the way, I got Ghost working again, so we can join it now.
Do you want to run through it real quick?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So once you go into testing grounds, I guess. Okay. But yeah, if you click on the crystal, you will join and also have your account be removed with like 50 crystals.
Okay. So boom, I joined me, and then it mentioned me in here. Yeah. I'm not supposed to have access to this, but I have admin access, so normally it would give me access.
Yeah. Then you just basically wait, but for now, because oh, never mind. Shoot. I think I broke it. Yeah, I went vanished R because then it actually oh god.
So it times like so this needs a little bit of UX help, right? It needs a little bit of like, it looks a little crazy. It needs a little bit of UI stuff. It needs a little bit of tweaking because it looks really crazy and intimidating. Like, what the fuck am I looking at? But it works really, really well. So these are all the different directions. Can I click a direction, or am I going to break something?
Oh, shoot. You're not in the party. Therefore, you can't.
All right. Well, once we get all this working, it'll be great. Okay, let's just go with that.
There we go.
Right now, it's a giant mess.
Right now, you can, basically, I don't have much for directions, but basically...
You hear loud groans to the north. That's pretty cool. Okay. Yeah. So we found a chest.
I wish I can do something better right now, but for now you have to do /smart chest, and then you get a menu.
Okay, and then lock, unlock, and then pick it.
Yeah.
So if you have a key, you can unlock it. Party does not have a key.
If you don't have a key here, you decide and try and lock pick it, and then it's a 50-50 chance right now.
Okay.
Actually, I'll debug mode, which then it'll be 100%.
Okay, sweet. So we'll figure all that out. So this is the main thing that I feel like we need to get done for the end game stuff. The top priority for the developers is to get the Ravager complete, which is the enemy. And I wish we could demonstrate that because that's the main enemy. Because basically when I designed the Ravager, it was designed to have one enemy at a time. And basically now we need a system where you can summon any enemy in any channel at any time. Because Hell's Gate, for example, is going to need to be able to summon enemies. Deadlands is going to be able to summon enemies, and so on and so forth. So we need a more robust system. And all the code on that is on the thing. So that's where we're at now. As far as where we're headed, let me pull up my list. Chat. So, overview of the future of the game. If we're talking about priorities of what we need immediately, we need the Ravager complete. We need the earlier enemies, so Crystal Shores and Sea of Fog, which will be early game enemies, which will be same code as Ravager, just lower level. We need the raid system complete, which is this whole system we're working on, which includes the procedural generation plus UX of the whole system. So we need to make sure it's easy to understand. And then also, this is where the artists come in as well. So I'll kind of skip to that. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but just remember that these all should be artist renditions of different stuff. Then in the future too, one of the things I want to do is I want to add unique abilities to the factions, because right now the factions don't really have a purpose other than kind of joining a group. So I was thinking we could have each faction have a unique ability or a unique attack, or basically in the lore, Obsidian Technologies is a mega corporation. Genesis Command was the commanding team on the ship that crashed on this planet. And the Hand was a religion aboard that believed in merging humans and AIs together. So you have all these different people that have different motivations. It would be awesome if designers or writers could come up with different abilities for each group that could kind of not break the game, but like would make each class unique. So that's something we got to work on. So class specific, actually I should call it class, I should call it faction specific perks. So this is the main place that we need to go in the future. And this is only like 5 things, but this is a lot more complicated than that, because there's a lot of little stuff that goes in the raid system, for example, a lot of little stuff that's going to go into the enemies, because this is like front end and back end stuff, and getting all this working. But ideally, like with this system, this should be duplicatable to a different dungeon, so we can use the same dungeon with different stats. So in a perfect world, we'd have a variable like difficulty 1 to 100, Ravager spawn rate, chest spawn rate, whatever, like access to variables, where we could set up new dungeons pretty simply, and basically get all that done. So that's the future. Do we have any questions on where the game's at, or what the kind of top priorities are? Nope.
Not for me, anyway.
Okay. So as far as the developer-specific needs, we're going to have to figure out like everybody's skill set. The way that this is going to work is we'll probably put all of this stuff in very specific language on the Trello board. And if you join the Trello board, what you can do is you can drag your name to a card, and you can kind of take that specific task on. And then if your name's on a card, nobody else should touch it, so nobody else should work on it. And then when you finish that, you can drag it over and pull up Trello to show you what I mean, just in case anybody doesn't have any experience with it. So this is Trello. Basically, priority to do is going to be filled with stuff that needs to be done. This is stuff left over from when just Jonathan and I were working on it. But what you're going to do, so let's say we add a card for the finish Ravager. It's going to be more specific than this because it needs to be, obviously. Let's say there'll be a card and there'll be like a checklist for get end game, get end battle rewards, whatever needs to be done. So if you come in here and this doesn't have a picture next to it like this, you can go up here and you could drag your name. So like Tim, I could drag my name to this, and then no one else will touch it. And then basically there'll also be an in progress list here, which will be right here. So we'll move this stuff over. And then once I drag my name to it, I would drag it over here. So everybody knows that me, Tim, I'm working on this thing. Nobody else can touch it. And then when you finish it, you actually drag it over and you can repeat the whole process over again. That's how the developer-specific stuff is going to work. Artist stuff and writer stuff is going to work the same way. But the writer stuff especially is going to have to be a little bit more collaborative. And the artist stuff as well. Like you guys are going to have to – oh, good. You're going to have to – you guys can mute yourself, by the way, if you need to. There's a mute button. If there's any questions on anything, like I'll be around. Jonathan will be around. I know this is going to be kind of chaos in the beginning, kind of getting everybody to work on this in the beginning, get it all working. But that's how it's going to work. So then as far as like artist-specific needs, we need a series of things. So first up, we need these icons, right? So there's going to be icons for the cipher box, for example, the crystals, the bot. I'm not necessarily happy with most of these, to be honest. I think a lot of these could use improvement, like metal, whatever the fuck that is, a shirt, like a level icon. I feel like all of these can be stylized and made better. So this will be one of the things that we need to get done. If you're good at icons, this is probably good for you. If you're good at like vector art or that kind of thing. If you're into landscapes, I don't know if we have any like landscape type of artists here that are good at stuff, but designing a picture of a dungeon room would be kind of cool, or a door, or a locked door, or like a rendition of a Ravager, or like a chest. All of these can be replaced with actual images to make the experience a little bit better, to know what you're looking at. And that way, once these are actual pictures too, you have to do a whole lot less reading because you can just kind of see at a glance what you're looking at, which would be kind of interesting. And then the last little thing we need too, I'm happy with the images that we have for each person. But if there was an artist that wanted to either design new people or redesign how some of these worked, I'd be open to that. But it's got to be obviously either match this art style or be able to do this. I know this is probably one of the hardest things we could do. So I think we're cool with this. I actually bought all of these, so that's probably fine by now. And then in addition to that too, there's going to be equipment, right? So there's weapons and armor. We need somebody to design icons and basic small little images, talking like 64 by 64, 128 by 128, something like that, of the actual different weapon types and stuff, like swords, shotguns, that kind of thing, whatever's available. So that's going to be the artist stuff. Designer specific needs are actually, before we move on, does anybody have any questions on the artist stuff?
I was not a question, but I was going to mention I'm relatively good at like making icons. I can't really do anything other than that related to artist things. But if you wanted me to join artists and focus on icons or do that sort of thing, I could do that.
Okay, that would work. We need somebody to do that. So all this will be on the Trello, and you can just grab it and pull it over, and take care of it. Cool. So then, as far as designer stuff. The main thing that we're going to need is crystal sinks, first and foremost. Like, most of this game is designed to the point where I think it'll work. Like, the actual proof of concept was everything that I showed you guys minus the dungeons, and lots of people were addicted to it. Like, a lot of people love the game. They kept coming back to it. We grew all of these people organically. I posted one video about it, but I didn't even need to at that point because we were growing about 10 people a day, which was interesting to see. So the main thing that we need is something to spend crystals on. So everybody has crystals, and we don't really have a whole lot of crystal sinks. So from a design perspective, we need interesting things, whether it's customization things, whether it's I don't want to do too many stat. Like, that's going to be up to the designer too to figure out whether you want to allow stat upgrades. We don't want people to get too powerful too quickly. Like, the whole economy balance thing is going to be a thing to kind of figure out. But actually thinking about how to, one, give each faction a really unique experience, and then two, how to kind of balance the economy. Those are the main things that we're going to need as far as game design goes. Does anybody have any questions on that?
I don't have a question, but a suggestion. How about a gambling den? Like,
gambling den.
Tim doesn't like gambling.
well, no. So this guy Messiah right here, he's called the Exiled, and he only shows up on Saturday. And he shows up at Traveler's Watch, which is like a kind of bar, tavern type of thing. And all he has right now is wager command, where you wager X amount of crystals.
I just shut down the bot.
You just shut him down. Of course you did.
Try and get
Of course you did. Anyway, you could wager 10, then there's a 50% chance you could either double your money or lose everything. That needs to be expanded on. So, absolutely. It's a really basic system, but like betting on a dice roll or something like that, betting other people, for sure. That could use a whole bunch of design work.
I like the idea of having like an actual blackjack game there, where the house takes a rake and you can calibrate the rake based on how much of a sink you need.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Also, you can do other things like bribing the bots to get better odds.
There we go. See, stuff like that, I'm all for. So one of the cool things about this game is like all this stuff is separated into like NPCs, right? And I think it's really cool how like Mosiah comes around Saturdays. Like he's not going to be there all the time because he's part of the exile and he's not technically part of the city. So stuff like that where you could bribe somebody, maybe there's some hidden features like that. Alexis is the bartender and she has a hidden feature where if you tip her 50 plus crystals, she sends you some information on one of the other factions. So let me try it. Knowing our luck, it's probably not going to work.
There you go. It should work, yeah.
Well, she just took my money.
Wager.
She just took my money.
Oh, yeah. She only takes her money because the bank doesn't exist anymore.
Okay. Well, so anyway, originally the factions were all competing. So there's a thing called the Codex where they had to donate money every week, and then the one that donated the most money would win something. So that system has kind of been depreciated because it wasn't really fun. So she would give information on which one of the factions was winning. But this probably needs to be repurposed for something interesting. Like maybe she can tell you some cool lore tidbit or something like that. I'm all for hidden stuff like this because people love this kind of stuff.
People were tipping her even though they didn't want the codex thing.
That was really interesting to me from a design perspective. People would tip her all the time and just give her crystals.
That always confused me.
From a logical perspective, that makes no sense. But from a game perspective, like people see her as a bartender, right? So you like tip the bartender. So that's going to be up to the designers. Like, think outside the box on this. I'm totally for. That was a crystal thing that doesn't make any logical sense, but it worked.
What does she do with all the crystals?
She sits on them. And just.
She has to do something with them.
Well, no, they disappear at this point. So. I would be down to have her do something with them, or I don't know.
Yeah, I like the idea of each bot having their own crystal stash.
Okay.
And we can figure out something for them to do with them later.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah. Maybe we could have a special event, a heist to try and steal from Adam or something.
They could have a coup.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So I mean, we have to figure all that out with the writing and stuff, but I'm all open for ideas like that. Generally, the way this works in the lore is that these people are kind of the runners of the city. The faction leaders are kind of in that gate. Alexis, they're kind of locals. They're kind of local business owners. The exiled are people that are not supposed to be in the city, but they're generally like the fringe people. So, like, Mosiah is definitely one of those guys that, like, he's not supposed to be here, but he's kind of hanging out. He's shady. He's the gambler. So there's a lot of opportunity in this kind of setup to create people that are multifaceted, that could do some kind of heist, could do some kind of shady shit, and get away with it. We can even set up a war. Like, I know for Maury, he's the healing guy. I didn't run through that, but you can heal yourself. He heals everybody at 3 a.m., and we have it set up to where Alexis kind of talks to him. So he announces when he heals everybody at 3 a.m., and then she'll kind of like respond to him every once in a while, which people love little things like that. So anything at all that we're down like that, we'd have to figure it all out. But I'm going to be really hands-off on this project at this point. Like, I want to kind of like help everybody get the teamwork stuff going and get it all moving, but with Phallophobia, I have so much work to do. I gotta be hands off with this somewhat. So it's really gonna be up to you guys to figure all this stuff out. And it's not gonna be. I mean, you don't have to sell me on the project. You have to sell everybody else and kind of figure out. I don't know if we're gonna do voting or we're gonna do freedom or how we're gonna do it, but we'll figure it out.
Sorry, I just thought of something. Can we stick all the obsolete bots and the obsolete code into like an obsolete folder? Like you said, Adam was obsolete the other day?
I would not do that. Adam is actually essential for like every single other like Adam quote unquote bot.
What do you mean? How so?
So for example, Adam code has been since when Tim would ask me to like have faction leaders, I basically use this same Adam like code database, and then started like, what do you call it? Basically doing checks on usernames to like have them display whatever. So yeah, and also that's now goes to
shared library.
What was that?
Can't you split that code off into its own shared library?
What do you mean?
Like checking, like code that checks usernames, code that sends messages, codes that do this, that, and the other thing that every bot is going to need.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah,
like a module that could be used by multiple.
We did that somewhat.
I did it a little bit, but not enough.
Yeah, so we probably need to go through it and do all that.
Crud, chat's been going. Crud, I should be paying attention to chat.
Okay. What instead of being religion about combining AI?
Free card Monty, thank Buster. And bots can have items for simplifying.
Quests. And yada yada yada.
And then Tomb for the ancient language, slowing to yeah, that guy. The codex could be a story element used to introduce quests. As in a Tomb in an ancient language that is slowly deciphered to lead to new judges, etc.
Yeah, Joshua, I'm down for that.
By the way, I need to mention, I don't think the codex was like not fun. I think the problem was people like optimization. So
the codex was fucking chaos. I don't know how many of you guys were here for that, but that shit was insane. Okay. So that's the last thing we need to talk about. Let's actually jump to that now. So we were talking about, we talked about designer-specific needs, but writer-specific needs. That's where this comes in. So that's a perfect segue. I'll get to that in one second. So basically, the lore of this whole thing is that there's a ship called the Genesis. It was the first, basically, have you ever seen the movie version of Lost in Space? They're sending a planet, they're sending a ship to a different planet. They're building a gate where once you go in the gate, you come out the gate on the other side and you're at the other planet. But the problem is they don't have a gate at the other side, so they have to send this ship, which is going to go on this long-ass journey to that planet. That's basically what happened. So this is their first ship that they've sent out. It's called the Genesis, and it's sent to colonize this planet. When they get here, things are a whole lot different. They actually get shot down. They don't know why, but they get shot down, they crash land. This game takes place 5 years after that event. So there's five years have passed. It is a sci-fi fantasy, so that happens. That's an event that happens, but there's also this force that I call the Essence, which is kind of like Star Wars Force in a way, but it's less. It's much more taxing. Basically, it kind of hurts the person that uses it. And when you step into the Essence, you basically have to wield this energy from a different dimension, and it basically tears through your bones and causes all kinds of issues. But you can do things like make longer term. You can jump a starship with it, right? You can teleport with it. You can cause effects in the world with it. There is a central city that they found on the planet that was already built. There's nobody there except for one robot, and they called him the librarian. And originally, the librarian was writing in this book called the Codex. And the Codex would be an actual account of everything that the crew of the Genesis did, which blew their minds. Like, what the hell? What is this dude? It's a robot sitting here in a city that's empty, basically, that knows everything that we're doing. And originally, the factions were fighting over the Codex, and so whoever donated the most crystals would get access to it. The problem is, it was really punishing. So we had at one point we had, I think religion had like 500 crystals. Or no, was it Anarchy or was it Religion who won? It was Anarchy.
No, it was Religion who first won with a shit ton of crystals.
Yeah.
And then Anarchy after that just destroyed everybody, right?
Sure
Yeah, in sheer numbers, and like we also donated like less next time, but yeah, then we stopped donating again.
And then so after one team wins by a landslide, and Anarchy had a significantly larger amount of crystals, there's no point to even donate. Like the whole game is kind of broken at that point. So I'm not opposed to having some competition between the factions. It's just that implementation of it wasn't necessarily, it didn't really work. And then on top of that, all they really won was the access to the codex, which was basically just a log of everything that happened, which wasn't super beneficial. And then we had people spying, and then it just turned into crazy because then when people would join the religion, they would get interrogated because they thought they were spies and a bunch of shit. So it's just, I decided to scrap that whole system. Now,
Totally not my fault. I'm kidding.
Now, that is the existing lore. If you are a writer, I do not mind if you change it. I do not mind if you change some of the way that this faction works. If someone mentioned making the hand some cyborgs, if you can come up with a believable fit into this picture, go for it. The way that these faction works is that Genesis Command was the actual crew in command of the Genesis, and they wanted to maintain command after the ship crashed, which makes sense, right? They're the commanding crew of the ship. The ship crashed. They would try and maintain order. Obsidian Technologies was one of the companies that built a lot of the stuff that was on board the ship. They thought since they sponsored the mission, they should be in charge. And then the hand just believes that everybody's idiots and that we should just go and merge with AIs. And they kind of think both these guys don't look to the deities of the machines to even care about them. If you want to change all of that, I'm totally down for it. We need to start world building. So we need to start a wiki, basically, where we world build all this different stuff. The needs of the writers are going to be, one, the lore, figuring all this stuff out, figuring out all the backstory, figuring out all the motivation. Two is the actual dialogue writing. So, Jonathan, does one of these places have the lore on the Genesis?
No.
There's no way I can show that?
Oh, well, there's lore backstory, but...
Can we try that? Where can I post that at?
Testing ground should work.
Okay, so lore. So there's a command called lore, and then you type whatever you want. So if I type lore backstory, this should show. So this was an excerpt that I wrote about the beginning of the Sanctum, written by a guy named Tiberius, which was years ago when they first... basically, he was a school teacher, so he's basically teaching kids about how it all worked. But then the idea behind the lore command, too, was to have lore, and you could do at Messiah or whatever, right? Which I don't think will work. Yeah, so he doesn't have any lore, but basically would say, this is about this guy, and this guy did this, and then he got kicked out of the city for whatever. And then same thing with all these different types of people. So we need the actual writing of all of the lore commands, first of all. So that's probably top priority. So let me write that down real quick so we have that.
Phineas Carberry just suggested something interesting. What if each faction had an epic bot that defended their base? If they get defeated, people can steal a faction's resources until it respawns, and you can upgrade your faction's bot with crystals.
That'd be interesting. And that would add to like the whole team dynamic of stuff.
That would be, but we'd have to be careful because it would be basically like a thing in the past, at the very first version of Sanctum, where whichever faction had the most people, they basically won because they had the most crystals as well.
So my design philosophy is personally like I'd rather a rubber banding type of thing than a curb stomp kind of thing. So if one faction is super ahead, I'd rather have something that gives a bonus to the ones that are losing rather than just like reinforce the winner. But yeah, so that's going to be a big thing. I noticed too, I actually think the reason why the Anarchy took over was, one, I joined the Anarchy first. So everybody, I was on stream and everybody kind of just joined that. But two, I think the Anarchy was one of the cooler sounding names than the other two. And those are all design considerations, right? Like, we need to make all of these factions just as cool as the others. It needs to be a hard choice, not like, oh, I'm just going to join that one. That was the coolest. Like, we need to really work on this, because otherwise we're going to end up with like anarchy. It's just going to be insane. It was like, there was like 80% of the users were in anarchy. So
is there a way to rubber band the actual populations between the three factions? Say disabling access to a certain faction?
One of the things that we were talking about before that I think would be interesting is using crystals as part of the way to do that. Like, for example, their check-in command. So there's a check-in command when you I doubt it'll work because everything's broken.
Check-in should work.
So if I check in every day, I can check in and I get a random amount of 5 and 10 crystals. Ghost shouldn't be the one doing that. That should be one of the faction leaders.
Yes. I don't know why they're not working.
Of course.
Bots weight the stat. And for example, I was sitting and think, I'm going to eat my words.
Okay, so Kamala does this. So the individual faction leaders take care of it. But yeah, I was thinking about rubber banding by changing the benefits of whatever faction was the smallest by giving them more. But you also don't want people just hopping between whatever faction. You want some sort of like bonus system for the longer you stay in a faction, or some kind of thing to keep it there. So that's something we got to figure out as a designers, is like, what's the best way to do this? Personally, I would prefer some kind of loyalty to their chosen faction, whether it's with a streak or whether it's something like that. Because the thing I did like is that people really, really got into their factions. Like, there's still a grudge between the religion and the anarchy. Still, like, they're still talking shit to each other. They don't even exist anymore. Okay, so I think that is awesome. If we can kind of recreate that same kind of feeling where there's like pride and loyalty to their faction, let's do that. But at the same time, yeah, we do need to balance the populations. But we could also build things to where you don't necessarily need the bigger population to win. Like, there's definitely design considerations for that. So
there could be like as a way to balance it out in a way. Like, you mentioned benefits to each of the factions. I was thinking, like, for instance, Obsidian Technologies, when you check in, like, as a bonus for being a part of that faction, you would have a random chance every time you checked in to get, or like a low chance to get also like I don't know what they're called, but like the computer piece or whatever as a material. Okay. Or maybe a couple of those. I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever works.
We'd have to figure out, because we have to communicate that to the player too, so we have to figure out the specifics of that. But yeah, I think resources, materials, crystals, there's definitely a way to do that. And then we can limit the amount of times that they can switch to. Right now, I think it's set to you can only switch once a month, but we could change it once a week. I'm open to all that. So this is probably one of the bigger projects that I've ever tried to create. So if anybody has any experience kind of running open source projects like this, or working with all this, and you see a better system than what we're using, please tell me. Let me know if there's a better way to kind of organize all this and figure out how everybody's working together and stuff. I'm open to it. I know each kind of person is going to need their own kind of stuff. So like developers, and artists, they get the Trello. Writers, we're going to need some kind of wiki for all the world building and stuff, and so on and so forth. But if you guys have any suggestions on that, let me know. We definitely
need that shared library of bot code.
I agree.
We need someone dedicated to looking after it.
Okay. So, library of bot code. Yeah, I agree. So right now, the majority of Adam's code is in a library, and then Captain Montgomery, Papadaro, and Kamala, they all pull from that library of code, because the check-in commands, the stats commands, all that stuff are in there. What But there's stuff that we definitely need because right now it's all duplicated, and that doesn't make any sense for programming. Like, there's no reason why the same function is in 15 different code bases, like, of each bot. I agree with that 100%.
And we also need someone to actually write the documentation for like the APIs and all that. You know what I mean?
Yes, that's a big one. So how this is working is, again, I had never used Node before in my life. I had never built a Discord bot before in my life. I copied your code, and then I added a bunch of shit to it, and then we ended up with this. And then Jonathan translated all of my Discord IO shitty code into discord.js, added a bunch of stuff on top of that. So the code base is not the best, and it's not the cleanest. Like, I was trying to get this up as fast as possible. So yes, there's going to be a lot of work cleaning stuff up and separating stuff out into libraries and stuff like that. We definitely need backend stuff because none of that backend stuff is on the code base, which we'll put it up there soon. Do we have any PHP developers in here? I don't think we do.
Apparently so, yes.
Oh, we do? Joshua, you're saying yes to that? He just said yes. I don't know what he's saying yes to because there might be a delay. I'm assuming it was that. So, yes, PHP. Okay. So, all of the backend is written in PHP. That's something we're going to need for developers too. So, backend. What's that?
Sorry, this is going to be controversial, but I think we should ditch PHP altogether. Keep it all a single language. That's
if we have the resources to do that and we have the available people, I'm totally open to that.
I'm also open to that too.
Yeah. The main reason it's PHP is because I knew PHP. It's not because it was the best language, but literally I knew MySQL, I knew PHP, so that's what I did. So the whole back end is PHP and MySQL sitting on a server. And it's just a database. And I can show you guys kind of how it all works actually real quick. I'll just show you kind of the basics of the database. We have all the stats of everybody and all that stuff. So most of this game actually takes place off Discord. It's not really on Discord. Just Discord kind of accesses all this stuff offline. Like I said, I'd never built a Discord before. I never used Node, any of that. I knew PHP just from my web development days. So if anybody, oops, that's the wrong one. MySQL fucking sucks. Anyway, it's frozen now. I'm open to that. Like, that's going to be quite a workload because we have the existing database, so we're going to have to merge it over, make it all work. If someone wants to take that on, please let me know.
Joshua says he can convert from PHP to JavaScript.
To JS. And then what would we use for the database?
SQL. That's the only real option, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, well, it depends on our skill sets that are available, right? So
I know MongoDB is an option, but I don't know.
Whatever we have, because I can't do this anymore. Like, I got too much on my plate. So whatever skill sets we have, let's go with that. Like I said, I'm cool with the PHP. I don't think it's necessarily bad. I don't think it's the best option, but it works. But it's, I mean, if we have a bunch of JS developers, yeah, it's probably best to just transfer it to JS. Is this unfrozen now? No. Let me see. Okay, so based on all of that, is there anything I didn't cover or anybody have any questions on anything they want to ask?
Trello. Yes, Trello. Is there a link to that somewhere?
Yes. If you go into the Discord Sanctum and you go into FAQ, you will see a Trello invite link right there. Same thing with GitHub. The test server is coming soon too. That's actually something we got to set up too. Write that down. So I'm setting up a sandbox server with duplicates of all of the bots so that we can test stuff and make sure stuff works. And then too, one of the things too, Jonathan, maybe this is something that we're going to have to discuss, but I know you were working on a bunch of stuff and there's a bunch of other channels that I didn't
private, and it's just like all play solo for whatever I want when soloing. But I don't know if they're gonna get in. But it'll be nice. But
so yeah, like you had guilds and you had
that's the archival guilds, and if you scroll up to the board.
Okay, and then there's all this stuff. So I don't know what all this stuff is. I know getting started.
Yeah, and then message board is basically your announcements. Then I have ideas for world and player quests, which I really like. Josh, I think it was Joshua's idea about having excellent news, and then you get like a bunch of quests from there or something.
Okay. Yeah, quest systems and bounties and stuff like that I think would be really interesting to add, but that's probably longer term out. I think our top priorities for now is to, I think the enemies are the top priority, getting the enemies to work.
Yeah.
If someone wants to translate all of the PHP to a JS server that we can send data to, that can sync across all the bots using like a database like that, I'm down for it. We have a server that you guys can use for whatever you need to do. Yeah, so I think those are the top two priorities. It's probably that in the raid system, enemies in the raid system, and the back end. How this is going to work for now is all of the code stuff, you guys is going to go through like GitHub. If you want to make changes to that, you can submit it there. Jonathan's going to be the one in charge of getting all that and pushing the stuff live. So we're going to have a test server where you guys are going to have complete access to do anything. You're going to push it to GitHub. Jonathan will go over it, make sure it's good. And then once it is, he'll send everything. He'll take that, he'll merge it, and then he'll send it live. Eventually, we will probably need team leads for each one of the professions. So like the developers, designers, the writers, and the artists. I don't know if we're going to do that immediately, but it would really help to kind of have a decision maker in each one of those facets. So we will get to that soon, probably in the next meeting. And then what I'd like to do too is like have these meetings like weekly, to where we can kind of talk about what the top priorities for the next week. We can write it all on Trello, and then everybody can get stuff done during the week, and then we can reconvene and talk about the priorities for the next week and so on and so forth, and keep that going to keep everybody on track and make sure we don't get too far in any crazy direction. I think that'd be good. Does anybody have any questions or suggestions on any of that stuff so far?
Shoot, I forgot something.
For now, for the Trello, is there going to be one person populating it, or are we all just going to be adding stuff? Because I feel like if we all add things, you might get duplicates. And
that'll get really crazy. I think we're going to have one person adding the tasks. I think if we have these weekly meetings, basically the meeting next week will probably just be us talking about all the priorities, and like probably either me or somebody else just adding stuff, adding cards here, and then people can kind of assign their name to it and take the task and so on and so forth. I think the code going public into production is probably going to be a single person, and that's Jonathan. And then the actual task list of stuff that needs to be done, I think probably needs to be one person. Because then it doesn't really matter how many people we have working on it, as long as one person is kind of overseeing the vision and making sure everything's fluid and making sure everything's concise and make sure everything's fits together, and like this guy doesn't overlap this guy, or this idea doesn't conflict with this idea. I think that'll work better.
Is the PHP code in Git?
It's not.
No, it is not.
It's going to be.
We need to remove like whatever. Wait, we need to like blah. I can't speak. There is a server passkey that I need to remove from those. Oh, that code base. So that will need to be done.
Yeah, that will be up soon. It'll be there soon, and then from there, yeah, we'll figure out whether we're going to translate or not. Unless anybody wants to volunteer now to do that rewrite without seeing the code. All right. Any other questions or anything?
Can I volunteer? Sorry, you go ahead.
I forgot. What do you say about what should I do again for Trello? Was it again?
What do you mean?
It was under FAQ in the developer channel.
Wait a sec.
Yeah, it was in here. FAQ. It's right here. You're already part of it, though, dude.
And I do what for that?
Okay, so here's how it's going to work. So in progress, there's a priority to do, there's in progress, and there's done. This is probably going to go away right here. And then this is just all the ideas that we have for all the shit, right? So if you have any idea, feel free to add your idea here. Feel free to put it there. This is probably the stuff that we're going to discuss on a weekly basis. So we're going to go through this and say, oh, that's a good idea. We need to add that. We'll drag it over to priority to do. So everything in to-do list is stuff that we need to get done. If you see something on here that you want to do, you drag your name from the top onto it. And then you drag this over to in progress. Okay? So then everybody knows that you are working on this stuff and nobody else is supposed to touch it. Please do not be a dick and remove somebody else's name from it or change some shit or, just mess with people. Once it's in progress, then you can drag it over to done once it's finished. Any questions on that? No? We're good? All right.
Can I just volunteer for the shared code? Because...
Yeah, so you want to go through and cut everything out and make a library out of it?
Yeah, I won't be able to do it till the weekend, though.
Okay, that's fine. Shared code between bots. That'll be a really good addition. Because there's a whole lot of duplicated code between all the bots, dude. So that would be very, very beneficial. So which one are you on here?
I'm not in there yet. I'll put my name on there.
So just drag your name and drag it over to in progress. Anybody else have anything they want to throw out, ask?
Yeah. If a writer comes up with a little snippet or a piece of lore, where do we put it? So
I'm going to create a wiki, and we're all going to add stuff to that. Basically, I'm gonna leave this up to you guys. I'm gonna leave it unregulated, and then maybe we can talk about it and kind of maybe mold stuff. But for right now, like if you want to add something in the lore, just go for it. Just do it, and then we'll figure it out, like whether it works with other stuff or whether it doesn't. Real quick, there's something that I should say just as far as like the writer stuff. What I had originally planned is there was going to be a raid where you actually go into the Ravager's Nest. And on the Genesis, there was two AIs. There was Adam and there was Eve. Eve was the ship's AI. Adam was the cyborg with a body thing. Not a cyborg, but whatever, the mobile one. Eve was the actual ship's AI. The Ravagers themselves, in the lore, nobody knows this, so this is a secret. But the Ravagers themselves were the dead humans from the ship. And they have been transformed by a process on the planet with Eve, the ship's AI, actually trying to revive them. So it's like a weird thing. I don't know the technicalities of how that happened, but originally in the lore, that was the plan. And the players don't know that, but...
So space zombies.
Space zombies, pretty much. And Eve is the Ravager Queen, and she's the ship's AI, just trying to do what she thought she was right. You guys can stick to that. You guys can throw that away. I don't know, but we'll get a wiki going, and you can add a bunch of stuff to that. But basically, I want to get the kind of whole backstory there. I want to get the backstory of all the people here. And then I would love to get some dialogue going, because each one of these... So like stuff like this. Sorry, I recognize the term, but unable to process the request. For a guy like Ghost, who's he's like a bounty hunter type of gun for hire type thing, he's probably not going to talk like this, right? So we need like dialogue writers to say some shit like, even like "Hey Travelers" just seems like the wrong. Or if you look at like the way that Alexis talks, she's got like this southern type of accent. So there's going to be a lot of dialogue writing like that, and all of the dialogue for each of the bots is separate from the code, right, Jonathan?
I think so, yes.
Okay, so there's actual files in the code where you can go through and change the individual dialogue. So like Montgomery, Dairo, and Kamala, they all have the same commands, but the way that they say the commands are going to be different. Like Montgomery, he's like this, captain guy. He's going to be very proper when he speaks. Dairo's going to talk like, I don't know, like Morgan Freeman kind of thing. Kamala's, she's a CEO. She doesn't give a shit. She's ruthless. She's kind of a...
Are they in JSON files?
What was
the
that?
Dialogue? Is the dialogue in JSON files?
What kind of files are in, Jonathan?
Crap. Wait, I actually, instead of JSON, I had to actually use a JS file. Yeah.
Okay.
No, they should be in JSON files.
JSON would be easier.
I'll be right
I
back.
think it was because of using the it was using environment variables, which I couldn't do in JSON. Which I just yanked up something for that, but we can definitely convert it.
I think we should probably adopt an official policy that all of the data probably needs to be in JSON from now on. Any kind of data that we have. Including, G-Man, I know you're working on the procedural generation. That stuff, Jonathan, if I'm not mistaken, you read the layout for the dungeon in JSON?
In its entirety, yes, although I really want that changed now.
You want what changed?
You know how you said it was I had direct connections. You wanted to have a grid system. I want to do that now, but that needs to be done.
We can still do the grid in JSON though. So
yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So that's something to keep in mind too. This is going to be a crazy, messy, ridiculous project for the next week or two. Hopefully it's going to sort itself out. We're going to get faster and better at working all together, and we can make an awesome game. There's no deadline on launch, but we would love to get this out in October. That's probably not going to happen, but in the next month or two, if we could have something up launched for all the players, that'd be great. We have a player base of 250 some people, I believe, and I have the ability to push way more if we need to. So once we get it up and running, I definitely can take care of the marketing stuff, and we can get a bunch of players.
221, yeah.
Probably need a DB API for bots, so bot designers are using higher level functions to access the data. With the main story goal, explore and learn the backstory. They're trying to fix the ship and fight on this desolate planet. Major suggestion made was putting the dialogue in files and the bot code so the interpretation can be done using the package. Yes. So they're all separate, but they probably should be JSON files. That's fair.
Yeah.
So that'll be one of the things that's on the Trello as well. Translate dialogue to JSON, and then in bot and in files, the actual files. All right. Before we end here, does anybody have any other questions or anything they want to?
2 questions actually. One would be, are there dossiers or any kind of information for the bot characters? Is there anything specific that the writers can get, or is that something we're going to need to create?
So none of them really have. Did my camera just shut out my webcam?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
What the fuck? That's not my webcam. Okay.
Okay.
Good times. Okay, so
Good old Sparko.
I'm just going to share my screen again, so there's something there. Whatever. Okay, so the way that all this works now is I basically just kind of have one line about who they are, but none of the stuff is in detail. So I'll write all this down, but Mosiah, for example, got kicked out of the city because he likes gambling and he causes trouble. Alexis is one of those people that just kind of didn't really want to be part of the voyage, but she was, she ended up on there somehow, and she just wants to, hang out with people. She runs the bar. Adam was the official AI of the ship. He doesn't really care about anything. He just, does all the tasks for everybody. Grays is a tech head. He just likes tech. That's why he helps you upgrade your shit. Maury is he's a narcissistic person. He's kind of an asshole. I don't know why I do it, but he bitches about it every day at 3 a.m. about reviving everybody. He's constantly just bitching about, I see you're alive and well because of me, but no biggie. He's fucking sarcastic. So stuff like that. I don't have anything beyond that. Captain Montgomery, like I said, I'm kind of working off his picture there. He looks like a stern kind of commander kind of dude. Tyro looks chill, laid back. Kamala looks like a super CEO, ruthless kind of person. That's all we got. But if you want to write backstory, if you want to write specifics, go for it. Like I said, Obsidian Technologies is the company that funded the Genesis projects. Genesis Command is the people that ran. They were in charge of the ship. The Hand is a religion. If we want to change what it's a religion about, you can go for it. I would love for them all to have some kind of conflicting interests with each other, though. So, like, these two definitely make sense. Like, you can kind of see their motivations. So, like, Obsidian, they paid for everything. They would think that they're in charge of the mission, right? Makes sense. Genesis Command, they were the command. They think that they're in charge of the mission. That makes sense. The Hand is kind of the one that's out there at the moment. So I like stuff like that. That's like you can see everybody.
Well, if they're AI,
what was that?
Well, if they're cyborg humans, they could. Well, if they're cyborg humans, they could think that maybe they were the smartest and most important, and that they would be most qualified to lead everybody.
Yeah, that's kind of how it is. And one of the interesting things about that too in the lore was that I thought that the Hand, when they found out about Eve, the queen of the Ravagers, and how they're technically they're zombies, but they're being brought to life by a machine, and how all that works, they wouldn't want to kill her, right? They'd probably want to join her rather than these two would probably want to fight the threat. So think about stuff like that. Like, it could be really interesting.
Okay.
Anything else anybody wants to throw out there or ask? Or?
Would I be able to sign up for getting started on the JSON files?
For the writing?
The dialogue, not in the main files.
Just writing the dialogue in the existing files? Or turning them into JS?
Turning them into JSON files.
Okay. Yeah. Translate dialogue files to JS. Sure. So drag your name here and drag it over, and you can go for that. I'm going to go ahead and write all of this stuff in specifics on here, and feel free to guys to pop in and do all this. Writers, I'm going to get the wiki up and running, and I'll let you know when it's there. Designers, feel free to discuss or create a document on what you want to do and how it wants to work. Artists, same thing. I'm going to add stuff here. If one of you guys said you wanted to do the icons, feel free to grab that afterwards and pull that over. Same thing with the landscapes and all that stuff.
I wrote up a short GDD, but there's really nothing in there.
Okay. So if we want to start designing one of those, I'm down for that too. You guys want to start adding stuff in?
Yeah, I think it'd be good for the designers.
Yeah. That way we can kind of mold this. The designers, I think, can think longer out than a week or two, whereas the rest of us, we just need to work on like whatever's in front of us. That's probably not a bad idea. Cool. So if you guys want to create an official document, I can kind of make it official and I'll put it in the places, and you guys could just like work on it together or design, whatever. Anything else before we end? I work in. So
I think we're good.
All right, guys. I'll be around if you need me. I'm available via PM. If you want to tag me in the Discord channel for the developers, you can do so. If you have any questions, you can talk to me. Jonathan's also familiar with the project. Add to someone if you want to talk to him. For now, I'm going to get all this stuff on Trello. We're going to work on that. I'm going to get the wiki up. We're going to work on that, and we'll go from there. One thing to consider for dialogue: are they one-liners right now? Can the system handle multiple dialogue lines? They're all single lines. So multiple dialogue options is something we should look at in the future, though. That'd be really cool to have. Possibly branching dialogue. That'd be interesting. All right. If we don't have any more questions, I will see you guys later. We'll have a meeting next week, and I'll remind everybody a day beforehand. Probably. Does this time work for everybody? Is this crazy for anybody?
Yeah.
Is it good?
Yeah.
Good for me.
All right. So we'll probably do the same time, same day next week if it works, and keep that up. But I appreciate everybody coming out. I'll see y'all later.
Cool.
All right. See ya.
Thanks for hanging out.
See ya.